It may sound confusing, but don't worry, there will be a summary coming up at the end of the video. Dear guests, welcome back to the channel. Today, let us talk about a QRH procedure, bleed 1 and 2 fault. Before we dive into this topic, do check out my video on A320 pneumatic system to understand how the bleed system works. As we all know, we need high pressure air to keep the aircraft pressurized. Where do we get this air from? Number 1, we get it from the engine bleed systems, and number 2, from the APU. The computer controlling the bleed system is called the bleed monitoring computer, or BMC for short. As usual, we have 2 computers for redundancy. Question: can you dispatch an aircraft with 1 bleed air system inoperative? Well, do comment below if you know the answer. Having 1 bleed air system fault is not that big of an issue. However, if both system fails, there is where the QRH procedure comes in. Once you completed the air engine 1 and 2 bleed fault ECAM procedure, call for the QRH procedure. The box item says that at any time of this procedure, if cabin pressure excess cabin altitude alert is triggered, apply the ECAM procedure. You are losing pressurization, so continue your descent to flight level 100 or MEA or MORA. Do comment below if you know what MEA or MORA means. Keep the wing anti-ice off and do not use APU bleed for wing anti-ice. In this case, it is prudent to avoid icing conditions. Press the recall button to recover any subtitle related to the air engine 1 and 2 bleed fault. So, if there is no subtitle with the alert and both engine bleeds are lost not due to engine fire nor start air valve fail to open, then start the APU. Let's discuss if APU is available and without. When the APU is available, switch on the APU bleed. I like to repeat myself so that you can remember. Keep the wing anti-ice off and do not use APU bleed for wing anti-ice. When APU bleed is on and when you get pressurization, reduce your rate of descent and consider maximum cruise level at flight level 200 because that is the limitation of the APU bleed. If pack 1 is available, pack 2 off. The procedure continues with if APU bleed is available. Pack 1 on, pack 2 on, engine 1 bleed on, engine 2 bleed on, and APU bleed off. This time, at flight level 200, we want to check if we can recover the engine bleed. This is provided there are no subtitles with the alert. Later on, we will have a look at bleed failures with subtitles. So, if no engine bleed is recovered, turn the APU bleed back on. And if pack 1 is available, turn pack 2 off. By the way, what does pack stands for? Do comment below if you know the answer. Engine 1 bleed off, engine 2 bleed off. Remember that wing anti-ice is not available. Okay, so what are the steps if APU bleed is not available? Well, turn off the APU bleed. When at or below flight level 100 or MEA or MORA, let's give the engine bleed a go again. Let's try again. Pack 1 on, pack 2 on, engine 1 bleed on, and engine 2 bleed on. If again no engine bleed is recovered, engine 1 bleed off and engine 2 bleed off. Maximum flight level will be then flight level 100 or MEA or MORA because your aircraft cannot be pressurized. When the cabin pressure delta P is less than 1 psi, ram air on to allow fresh air to come in. So we have covered the procedures if APU is available. So the next procedures are, you tried starting the APU but APU is not available. So APU bleed off. When at or below flight level 100, MEA or MORA, try to check on the engine bleed. Pack 1 on, pack 2 on, engine 1 bleed on, engine 2 bleed on. And if it is not your day and no engine bleed is recovered, engine 1 bleed off and engine 2 bleed off. Maximum level is flight level 100, wing anti-ice is not available, and when cabin pressure delta P is less than 1 psi, ram air on. The next part of the checklist is if left leak is subtitled with the air engine 1 and 2 bleed fault alert, or if engine 1 bleed is lost due to engine 1 fire or start air valve 1 failed to open, or if APU leak fed by engine alert. In this case, you are unable to use the APU bleed, so when at or below flight level 100 or MEA or MORA, pack 2 on and engine 2 bleed on. If engine 2 bleed is not recovered, then engine 2 bleed off. Your maximum flight level would then be flight level 100, MEA or MORA, wing NTI is not available, and when cabin pressure delta P is less than 1 psi, ram air on. Now what if right leak is subtitled with air engine bleed fault? In this case, we can try to use the APU to recover pressurization. APU start. If APU is available when we are at or below flight level 200, keep the wing NTIs off. Remember, APU bleed must not be used for wing NTIs. Set the APU bleed to on, and when pressurization is recovered, reduce the rate of descent and maximum flight level is flight level 200 due to the limitation of the APU bleed. Do check out my video on A320 APU. The section is then divided into two parts: whether APU bleed is available or not. If APU is available, pack 1 on, engine 1 bleed on, and APU bleed off. And if engine 1 bleed is not recovered, switch the APU bleed on again and turn off the engine 1 bleed. If APU bleed is not available, APU bleed off, and when at or below flight level 100, MEA or MORA, pack 1 on and engine 1 bleed on. If engine 1 bleed is not recovered, engine 1 bleed off, and when cabin pressure delta P is less than 1 psi, ram air on. It may sound confusing, but don't worry, there will be a summary coming up at the end of the video. If APU itself is not available, then perform the same actions. APU bleed off, and when at or below flight level 100, MEA or MORA, pack 1 on. Engine 1 bleed on. If engine bleed is not recovered, engine 1 bleed off, and maximum flight level is flight level 100. Wing NTI is not available, and when cabin pressure delta P is less than 1 psi, ram air on. Last but not least, we look at the last failure item, which is both left leak and right leak subtitle with air engine 1 and 2 bleed fault alert, or if both engines bleed are lost due to engine fire or start air valve fail to open or APU leak. In this case, no engine bleed can be recovered, so the maximum flight level is 10,000 feet or MEA or MORA. Wing NTIs is not available. The only thing we can do is, if cabin pressure delta P is less than 1 psi, then turn on the ram air. In conclusion, this checklist has 4 parts. Depending on your failure, go to the most relevant section. The 4 parts are: engine 1 and 2 bleed fault with no subtitle, engine 1 and 2 bleed fault with left leak subtitle, engine 1 and 2 bleed fault with right leak subtitle, and engine 1 and 2 bleed fault with both left and right leak subtitles. The 4 parts are then further divided into subsections. For example, if APU is available or not, if APU bleed is available or not, which we have discussed previously.